the things that has always interested me is the relationship between music and health. And I'm a professor of neurology at Columbia, and I do a lot of work with the brain. And one of the things that we know in neuroscience is that music actually occupies twice as much real estate in the brain than language itself. Twice as much real estate in the brain as language itself. That's how much space the brain commits to music over and above language. And so in my practice, we use music to heal. We use music to help people speak again, people who have had strokes. We call it melodic intonation therapy. We use music for agitated delirium, when patients are delirious and thrashing. Rather than put them on restraints, we play the music, and their souls just calm down without the need for medications or restraints. So music has incredible healing power. So my first question to you, Talib, is how has hip-hop helped to heal you? And then same question for you, Raj.
Well, to answer that question, I suppose, thank you, by the way. I suppose I would first want to think about what makes hip-hop unique from other forms of music. And hip-hop is more based in a certain culture than other forms of music. Some forms of music are just about having fun, or just, just art that you stare at on the wall that doesn't really connect with any sort of practical lifestyle. Hip-hop is not that. Hip-hop is directly connected to the lives of the people who are singing these songs. So as the phrase goes, if you want the rhythm, you have to have the blues as well. And so because hip-hop is uniquely positioned to connect us to culture, I feel like hip-hop does that for me. It connects me to culture. Hip-hop has a value system. I'm unique. I'm not uniquely, but I'm definitely very, very blessed and privileged to have grown up in a loving home, a home where I had both my parents who were very much involved in my life, and a lot of people in my field, a lot of people in hip hop disproportionately don't have that. So I'm able to see really firsthand how hip hop has helped my peers who didn't have that structure, who didn't have that stable home life. They're able to, I don't know, I'm speaking anecdotally here, but I feel like my friends who grew up without their fathers became better fathers through listening to hip hop, through a value system. But hip hop also, it's a community, it's a stew, it's a collage, and it helps us to stay connected. And for me, that's been very healing.
Raj?
Yeah, thank you for that, man. I think, I don't know how I can sum it up too much better than that. I feel like you put it in the best words, but for me, it's like you said, it gave me something to see myself in terms of like an art form. Like we see, like you said, all these different art forms, but to see somebody rapping what feels like my life and my story, and he looks like me. He's in the East Coast, I'm from the West Coast, but his block look like mine, his homies look like mine, his mama look like my mama. And he talking about these things at a young age that I couldn't necessarily articulate at the time. Because the biggest thing for me in hip-hop or any art form, but really in hip-hop, is the storytelling. I feel like you connect to the narrative and the stories of a lot of these people. And for me, it's just like, at a young age, being able to see these men articulate these feelings and, just tell my story, it helped me to grow and evolve. Because I'm like you, I came from a loving family, mom and dad. But what it did for me and what it did for all my homies was, it was just another guide for us to navigate, this crazy world as black men.
So as artists, and I'm going to stay with you, Raj, as artists, you give so much to your fans, you give so much to your teams. I'm curious, what do you give to yourselves? What do you give to your own mental and physical health needs? Meditation, time out, exercise regimens, taking recreational time. I mean, what type of things do you do to look after yourself?
For me, it's a great question. I think for me, a lot of it is grounded in the art. You know what I'm saying? So for me, if I'm not writing music, I'm producing. That's therapy for me. I'm doing poetry. I'm doing some type of art. But I try to do what my body feels like it needs. I know the biggest thing for me is if I'm not working out consistently, you know, you could probably speak to the dopamine in my brain, but I just feel like I'm operating at a lower energy level, you know, and I could just tell when I'm not exerting myself or pushing myself. You know, I try to do things like pray, meditate. For a while, I was doing this thing called the morning pages where I would wake up and I would just write everything that's on my mind. You know, it would start just as like, yo, I'm just waking up, getting out the bed. I don't know what I'm gonna talk about, whoop-de-whoop, really a brain dump. And you do it, but after a while, you get about a 2 or 3 pages in, now you're talking about real stuff. You're talking about stuff you're going through with your brother or your mom or the problems at your job. And one of the things I learned that it allowed me to do, if you do it for long enough, you'll start to see patterns in your thinking. And you'll start to see these things that you're dealing with every day. Like, damn, I've been talking about my relationship with my girlfriend and not being able to get through to her for 2 weeks. And when I'm the type of person, if I see it for long enough, I gotta fix it. I'm not gonna keep writing about it. So I feel like a lot of people have a lot of stuff on their mind, at least I do. I need to find ways to get it out. You know, I did therapy for a while. Like I said, I journal a lot, I write a lot, but, you know, just finding ways to get this extra energy out of me.
Yeah. And Talib, what do you do to really take care of your mental and physical health?
That's been a journey and it's a process. You know, most people, I would wager, in the world, go to work and self-medicate, deal with, you know, substance abuse. When they get off of work, go have a drink, go smoke a joint. And with living an artistic life, it's even worse as a traveling musician because this stuff is not just shoved in my face, but it's provided for me for free often, and it's encouraged often. And it's not true that abusing substances makes you a better artist, but a lot of people feel this way. A lot of people numb themselves to get through it. And I gotta say, the pandemic, I have a little bit of survivor's remorse from that lockdown time because before then, I was touring for 20 years straight, 200 shows a year. And that seemed completely normal to me because I had to get to the bag. You know what I'm saying? That was how I was being paid. I played baseball as a kid and a little bit of soccer, but I wasn't someone who was who worked out or anything like that, or ate salads or anything like that. Took care of my diet. Because I grew up in Brooklyn in conscious communities, I knew where the good food was. You know where the health food stands. Mm-hmm. Back then it was health food stands. It wasn't Whole Foods. You know what I'm saying? But it was like you knew where the ITEL spots was, and you know the certain cats, you know, that you could go to. But wanting to sustain a touring life is what made me start to change my diet and take care of myself. And Jim Jones, who is a capitalistic rapper, is my guy. But he talks about working out. He says, I work out because when I work out, I make more money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that if you're a capitalist, that's a good way to look at it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not so much a capitalist, so for me, it's the same thing as my brother here. It's like if I don't keep up a regimen, it's harder for me to do what I need to do. I just recently made an album, Madlib, and Madlib is an artist who is famously reclusive. He doesn't do interviews. He doesn't make himself available for media. He doesn't make himself available for the industry. And because he did an album with me, he graciously did a couple of interviews with me. But I had to stop doing it because I could see physically on his body and his face, this is my friend, how much he was not enjoying. Like, it was just like terrible. He was having a terrible time. He was sweating. I was like, oh, he doesn't like doing this. Like, he's having a physical reaction to doing these interviews. And somebody asked him a question. They said, well, why don't you don't want nobody to hear the music? Why don't you participate in this? He said, look, if you like the music, that's good. If you don't like it, that's fine too. I don't do it for you. I do it for my mental health. That's the only reason I do this music. Yeah. And so when he said that, it crystallized a lot of things for me because I feel the same way, but I had never heard somebody put it so succinctly.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. You know, so we're in WeNation, global leader in touring. And so when Talib mentioned touring, And I think about, 200 shows. How does touring generally affect your mental health?
I mean, touring is, I love it. I love touring. But again, it's gotta be because you love touring. The idea that you're touring because you wanna make money can be very stressful on your mental health. I was on a tour early in my career. It was Black Star, Biz Markie, rest in peace, Black Eyed Peas. Pre-Fergie Black Eyed Peas. So this was like, they was opening for me and Yasin at the time. And it was the Coca-Cola tour, the It Get It tour, and that stood for if you don't know, you don't go. And the tickets for the tour was on the backs, the twist off of the tops. It was like some promotion Coca-Cola, and nobody knew, nobody went. And so we got paid a lot of money to perform in empty rooms.
Wow.
And I took the tour because my girlfriend at the time was pregnant with my daughter, and I needed the money, but I couldn't stomach performing in empty rooms for money. And me and Yasin, we ended up leaving that tour halfway through that tour.
Wow.
Because it just was like, nah, we can't. It's not good for our spirit.
Wow. Raj, and you?
I could definitely understand where you're coming from. It could be a grind at times. Luckily, I haven't been in situations like that. For me, all my tours have been either tours I'm on or I'm opening up for somebody I know that's really my homie. It's a beautiful experience. For me, it's been super therapeutic, especially my last tour, because I dropped a project. It's called The Blue Hour. And in 2021, I lost my mom to cancer. 3 months later, in 2021, I lost my dad to heart failure. And that album was just about grief. It was about me processing the grief. It was about, just the nights I was up crying, or, all the things that I went through. It's just like I just put everything I had into that album. You know what I'm saying? Because when I was approaching that album, I didn't know, because when you grieving, it's like I want people to feel it. Because for me, the art that I love is, like I was talking about earlier, the things that I see myself in, people going through my same struggle. And I know that although I had went through all that pain, it was something beautiful in it. It was something that people could get from it who went through what I went through. So I put everything into that album. I didn't know how it would be received, but as soon as I put out the first single, which was called Balance, the overwhelming amount, I have never had my DMs flooded like that. You know what I'm saying? My comments never hit like that. Like I got high engagement on my social media, but the type of engagement I was getting, like people like, man, I haven't had that feeling that you put in that song since my mom passed 7 years ago, or the way you articulated what you are going through is how I've been feeling, whoop-de-whoop. So going on tour, for me the last time, it was like people front row crying, people with their mama in the back because they just lost their granny, or somebody who just lost their parents in the front. Like, the experience was so therapeutic. It was healing to the point where I was crying on stage sometimes. My DJ had just lost one of her best friends, you know what I'm saying? Like, we lost, one of my best friends died a couple months before the tour, you know what I'm saying? So it was just like, it was heavy, but it was cleansing for me, you know what I'm saying? And I never felt nothing like that.
Let me just quote what you said. You said, this album is about transition. It's about grief. It's about experiencing every emotion and not running from them.
Right.
Were there times when you felt like running from your emotions?
For sure, you know what I'm saying?
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for me, it's like, it's indescribable. If you still have your parents in your life, God bless you. You know what I'm saying? If you've lost a parent, I feel for you. If you lost both your parents, it's not too much people could say to you. It's an indescribable pain, and it's unavoidable. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was the only downfall for me with the tour, is that I could no longer escape it. You know what I'm saying? Like, even back home now, like when I'm out in Oakland or Berkeley or in the city, people come up to me because they want to tell me their stories about grief. I might be with my girl at the restaurant. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's for sure times you want to run from it. It was times I ran from it. I did drugs, I drank, I did all that, because you don't always want to sit with it. And I'm already kind of a anxious person. My mind's already running a lot. So then that adds to the anxiety in your brain. It was nice I couldn't sleep. You know what I'm saying? It's a journey. You know what I'm saying? But it's something that I learned that you need to embrace every emotion of it. It's okay to be sad, it's okay to be down, it's okay to be happy, it's okay to feel all this, every single emotion as a human, but the biggest thing for me is like, how do you want to honor those people that you lost?
Yeah.
And that's what my plight turned into, like how can I honor my parents in the best way?
Your story was beautiful, and The Blue Hour was an incredible album, and I just have to thank you for your courage, putting that out there and really helping connect with so many people who've been through it. Just to know that they're not alone is huge. I want to swivel back to you, Talib, for a minute, and for someone who you've done so many shows, and you've had such an illustrious, incredible career on the road. When COVID hit and touring was shut down, how did that affect you?
That was a big deal. Well, the lesson I learned through all of it is to be a lot more intentional on stage, because the touring became a job. It became just, assembly line for me. It just became easy to do, to the point where if you do 200 shows a year, you're not present for all of those shows. I'd be on stage thinking about whatever arguments I'm having with people, or what I'm going to order from room service. Wow. And this is while I'm performing these songs, and I became so good at it that I'm still performing and getting standing ovations. Wow. And people asking for the encore. I wasn't even present, and thank you for sharing your story, because I've never experienced pain like that. And my good brother, just recently lost one of his parents, so I'm seeing it firsthand. But you talking about putting that in the music, I mean, God bless the music, because even with me, like, I did a prison run with Common, and I've been, Get By is my biggest song. That's my free bird, right? And so I've been performing that song 200 times a year for 20 years. The song actually lost meaning for me. It just became like a Pavlovian thing. Like, when I hear that opening note, the show's almost over. That's what it became to me. Okay, now I know I can stop working. That's, wow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I performed it at a prison when I went with Common. And the song, the first verse, is actually about the prison industrial complex.
Wow.
And I forgot that that's what the song was about. Because for me, it was the song I've been performing in nightclubs where people drinking and partying. If I go to a strip club, the DJ's gonna throw and Get By. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's not a good strip club song, but that's the only song by me they got in a Serato. So, you know what I'm saying? I gotta watch strippers dance and get by. It's not
like
fun.
Dancing to Fight the Power.
It's not fun for anybody. So going to that prison was the first time and I had just lost my grandmother a week before I went to the prison, and the last bar is about my grandmother. And it's like, it hit me like I had a real moment, like, wow, when I performed in front of those prisoners, because they don't be at the nightclub, they don't get entertainment like that, they're losing their minds, and I'm talking about them. It felt real, it felt more real. And so that was like a glimpse of like, I gotta be more intentional. But then I went back into my life, and then the pandemic happened, and remember, I'm doing 200 shows a year, so when there's no more shows, I honestly had what could have been a crisis at that time, because I'm like, well, who am I and what is it that I do? Because I was defining myself by being able to feed my family from doing these shows. No matter what happens anywhere in my life, no matter what happens in the industry, no matter what happens online, no matter what happens in the world, I can depend on the fact that I can show up in the flesh and someone will pay me to be there. If that doesn't happen, what else is there? And I had so many other revenue streams that I opened up. I wrote a book called Vibrate Higher. I started the book 10 years before, but I finished it during the pandemic. The first chapter is about how music is healing and about raising the vibrations through music. That's what the first chapter is about. So I got the book out there, started doing podcasting more, having conversations with people, with Yassine, Dave Chappelle. We did the Midnight Miracle, and then I did my own with Up Rocks. But what happened was Dave Chappelle was doing these shows out in Yellow Springs. And after 3 or 4 months of not performing, I started getting on stages in these shows he was doing. And I couldn't remember the lyrics to my hit songs.
Wow.
That's how I knew I wasn't present.
Wow.
I couldn't remember the lyrics to Get By. I couldn't remember the lyrics to The Blast, songs I've been performing 200 times a year. And that was extremely scary to me. That was very scary to me, because it was like, what is going on? What's going on in my head? What's going on with this music? It took me a minute to get back to the point where I felt comfortable on stage. I ended up doing a Blue Note run. I did 7 nights in a row, 2 shows a night last year. So I did so many shows, I actually hurt my arm from holding up the mic like this. I have rapper shoulder. So that obviously wasn't healthy.
Did you say rapper's shoulder?
Rapper shoulder,
No,
yeah.
it's a thing, low-key.
It's like tennis elbow, but for rappers.
Okay, well, I need to publish an article on that with you.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. It was scared. I went to the doctor. He was like, "What you be doing with your arm?" I was like, "Slow down." He said, "You always." Anyway, but during that run, I was so scared of not being able to do the songs on stage and remember the words that I actually just told the audience. I said, "Look, I don't remember a lot of these words, so y'all just got to work with me." And then I ended up, because I had spent all summer with Dave and Michelle Wolf and Donnell Rollins and Mo Amer, my banter with the audience had comedic timing. Wow. So now I'm doing a stand-up set. And I'm like, wow, okay, now I got stand-up in my wheelhouse. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, just from keeping it real with the audience. I just did the Blue Note again, 6 shows in a row. I broke them up this time. I didn't do them in a row. I took a week off between 3 shows. But I felt way more comfortable on stage now. And it was a reminder of the same time last year, I felt like I didn't know what was gonna happen. It was one of the scariest moments of my professional career.
Yeah, it's amazing. Back to you, Raj. Relationships. We all need them. We all learn from them. Family, romantic relationships, professional relationships. Which relationships from you in your life have you learned the most from? And which relationships have pointed you to a part of your life that you realize you need more healing in?
That's a great question. I think the first one that comes to mind is, like I said, when I was going through all this stuff with my parents. So I'm my mom's only child. My dad has 3 kids. But when my parents were going through that, I was really the only one there. You know, so I had to drop everything and kind of become a caregiver for my mom, who was already a caregiver for my dad because he was already sick. So I had to kind of start taking care of both of them. And when it happened, things were happening, you know, so fast. I felt like I was kind of like in a whirlwind, you know. I didn't really communicate properly with anyone around me. Not too many people in my life, except the people super close to me, knew what was going on. And looking back on it, I don't know if I was doing that intentionally, because I'm the type of person, like, I don't really like to put my stuff on other people. That's just how I am. Like, I try to deal with as much as I can by myself, which I've learned is not healthy. And I learned that through one of my best friends, Sam, and it was towards the end of my mom's life, right when she got put on hospice. It was like maybe a week or 2 before she passed. And I remember having a conversation with him, and he told me, he was like, you know, having a friend is not always about the good times. He was like, you know, I'm a friend that could handle it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm here for that extra weight that you can't carry. That's what a good friend is for. You know, we're here to help you through these hard times. And I feel like a lot of people, well, I don't say a lot of people, at least people like me, you know, we have a problem. Hey, bro, I need some help, bro. Or it might even be like, you know, I got a lot on my mind, you know, in which, you know, full circle moment might be what's leading me to write so many journals or write so many raps, because I got all this shit on my mind that I'm not really telling nobody. But I think that moment with him helped me realize, because after that I was more vocal with what I needed, and it made me realize, like, I have friends who are not only capable of helping me maneuver and carry this weight, but they want to, because they don't want to see me doing bad. Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever they could do to help me, they'll do to help me because they love me. So I think that the moral of the story is, like, if you feeling that extra weight, 9 times out of 10, you got somebody out there who will help you with it. You don't got to go through it alone. It was nights where I felt alone. I didn't have to be alone. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the biggest thing I learned. Yeah.
Talib, you've been a great observer of the socio-political landscape, and you've used your platform really to advocate for social justice a lot. And yet, one of the things that struck me is that since 2020, hip hop has lost over a dozen of its finest artists to suicide, homicide, drug overdose, preventable disease. And these losses have created this gaping hole in hip hop that, for me, as a medical practitioner, is very painful. And I have two questions. The first question I have is, what do you make of this astounding loss of life prematurely in hip hop that is still going on today? And the second is, how can we best align the medical and the hip hop community to center a movement around health and healing for the genre? Go ahead, Raj.
You know, I'm saddened by any loss in general, especially that of homicide and gun violence, because I come from that. I lost one of my best friends in 12th grade to homicide, and my other best friend is doing 25 to life right now. And for me, I'm always conflicted about it because, the homicide, I can't speak so much to the suicide, that's different. But the homicide has been here since I've been around. You know what I'm saying? We see it now because we're on social media and it's in our face, and it's more celebrities than ever. It's more rappers than we ever seen. Every day I get online, it's a new rapper. You know what I'm saying? It comes with the territory. People gonna die. People been dying. You know what I'm saying? I think it's bigger than, this question is bigger than just hip hop. This is a cultural question for me. Because since I've been a child, people have been dying. I lost my homie last year. And then when I really think about it, it's just like, what we idolize in hip hop is just the shit that ain't cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how we want to phrase it. It's just the stuff that is killing our communities is what's at the pinnacle of hip hop right now. Of course, we have the pillars who've been, we have the anomalies who are not that, but the majority of it is like, because I agree with him, it's capitalism, is what's fueling a bunch of this, is to make money. And the quickest way you could make some money right now is you could hop in a video with your homies, you could do a song, 20 minutes in your bedroom, throw the auto-tune on there, do a little mix, go to the hood, shoot it. When you look at YouTube videos, the videos that do the most numbers in the rap community is the hood videos. We are infatuated with that, and to me, that's a deeper conversation. That's what we love. That's what America has put on us from the jump. Guns, sex, drugs, all that. We're infatuated by that, you know what I'm saying? And we bring it to hip hop like this is a hip hop thing, like this is a cultural thing, you know what I'm saying? So I think for me, they're just trying to address it as deep as you can within a system, which I feel like I don't know if it's even capable of changing within the system that we under, which is capitalism. So, my heart is out to anybody who's lost somebody from homicide or suicide. I think the biggest thing you could do, or we could do, I'm really inclined to push for anything grassroots, right? Like where I'm from, one of my good friends, Delancey, and my boy Abbas, they have a program called People's Programs, and they really in the field. The pillars of their program is based off the Black Panthers. They really be in West Oakland, giving out food to the homeless. They really be out providing resources for the homeless. They're growing food in their community. They're growing gardens. They're doing all this stuff because they're in the hood and they're doing the work. I think it's easy for us to be like, what could the people up there do to change? You know what I'm saying? But what can we do in our communities to change? And I think like for the people who are not truly in it like that, but you want to support, I'm pretty sure it's a million grassroots foundations out here that's working in Brooklyn, Manhattan, the Bronx that could use your resources, that could use your social network, that could use whatever resources you have, because they're really in the field doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Hip-hop public health, that's what we do.
Exactly.
Hip-hop public health.
Exactly.
Talib, same question to you.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that organization. There's always organizations locally, and like in Detroit, they got New Era Detroit, and there's Black Men Build, and there's Until Freedom, and there's so many organizations that's doing the work that we as artists should be setting attention to. As far as homicide, I'm from, when I was coming of age in hip hop, Biggie and Tupac were the biggest stars in the world, and we lost them both to homicide. And my first record was Definition, where me and Yasin Bey is singing about Biggie and Tupac. We lost Tupac, we lost Biggie, too much violence in hip hop. That's how I started my career on that record. And you know, things ebb and flow, and you see things get better, but also as you get older, and you get more about paying your bills, and you get removed from some of that stuff. And so now I'm far removed from what they call gangster rap today, which would be drill rap. And I've heard, there's a lot of it I don't understand, but as an artist, I do understand it. As violent as it can be, and as violent as it are people looking for their ops and using songs, weaponizing songs, that music is still therapy for a lot of people. And just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's all bad. But I will say that I just came from Philly. I did the Roots Picnic, and I know drill rap is really popular in Brooklyn. I'm approaching 50, so I don't, what I'm saying? Like, I don't know the names of the artists like that. But when I was in Philly, people kept coming up to me at the Roots Picnic and saying, "Yo, thank you for doing what you're doing. We need more of what you're doing. Less of that drill rap. Less of that drill rap." And people are for more than they were when we were growing up, associating the street rap with the violence. Like, people in our communities more than ever, more than the era of Tipper Gore, when we had when they were putting the stickers on the music, they was blaming Ice-T's cop killer for cops being shot back then. But even more now we don't have, it's not the conservatives or Republicans. I'm seeing people in our communities so fed up that they're now pointing at the artist. I'm speaking on it from a place of I'm observant from a distance. I'm conflicted about that, because my as an artist, my spirit tells me it's not the fault of the artist. You know what I'm saying? But then I gotta listen to the voices in the community. Now, to the health part about it, obviously homicide is a health problem. But beyond that, when I was a teenager, we were told you're not gonna make it to 21 if you're young and black. Your chances are very slim. And so that's to make it to 21 is a milestone for a young black person, particularly for young black males, in the way that we've been indoctrinated. I remember being happy that I made it to 21. But now, I'm almost 50, and I feel like because I'm becoming more knowledgeable about my spirit and my health, and I feel like I'm becoming better and getting healthier, me personally, at my own journey. But I have a lot of peers, from Phife Dawg to Dave from De La Soul to MF Doom, to people who I work closely with, who are my age, who are dying on me. Black Rob, and particularly Doom, this is somebody who I toured with. De La Soul, Dave from De La Soul has been sick for quite some time, and I've been touring with them in his place because the show must go on with those guys. And that was really crazy for me to watch his journey. So it's really scary for me that we just there's no rest for the weary. We made it past 21, but then it's like, well, can you make it to 50? It's like there's always like the death is just on your shoulder when we're in these communities. And like you were saying backstage, racism is everywhere. This is why I talk about it all the time. It's in the healthcare system. It's you talked about not being harder to get kidneys for black people. These are the preventable disease. That's a very tough phrase to swallow, because I have a lot of friends in the hip hop community who have died recently from diseases that are preventable.
Yeah. So one of the things that we really believe at Hip Hop Public Health is that folks like Talib and Raj, who have a platform, can really help us lead conversations, not just about mental health, but about preventable disease, about getting checked. My co-founder, Dougie Fresh, he had a colonoscopy, which he put on his Instagram, and he was getting calls from all over the country. Yo, tell me about this procedure. And a lot of people just went and got a colonoscopy just because Dougie was talking about it on his Instagram.
Side note, Dougie Fresh is got to be 54.
Yep.
He looks younger than everybody in his room.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And so what Hip Hop Public Health is really trying to do is to really raise awareness about the things that can be done beginning when you're young. because it's so much easier to build a child up than to repair an adult. It's just harder work repairing an adult. You got kidney transplants, you got heart transplants, all the things that we've been talking about. So how can we really start talking to our children about these preventable things while they're young, so that by the time they get older, they can live beyond 50 and live healthier, more productive lives? So on that note, I can't thank you guys enough. I really can't.
Thank you. I think the work that you and Dougie Fresh are doing is very important, and it can't be overstated how important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you as well. It's a blessing
Thank
to be
you.
up here with
Yes.
you and
Thank
you,
you.
legend, man. It's legendary.